So how much do you think that porn has prohibited men from going out, talking, interacting, spitting game with women? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's a sedation tool, right? Just like alcohol, just like weed, just like video games. Porn is, I'd lump that all into the same category, right? It's escapism. Takes you away from having the reality of life, of having to go through challenges and obstacles and adversity to get what you want. It's immediate gratification.
Yeah, taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
Why go out there, meet a girl, talk to her, get rejected, spend money, the date didn't work out. It's like, I could just jerk off.
And it's programming yourself to avoid delayed satisfaction. Right? Because that's one of the number one skills of a successful entrepreneur as well, is like their ability to delay gratification. Right? If you can prolong that gratification as long as you need to see the end goal, that means like every day I'm working towards this goal and I'm not necessarily getting any positive feedback at all, but eventually, bang, I get a big payout at the end of it. That is what you need to do to get success in basically everything, is that consistency, that delayed gratification, right? And you're training your body to completely avoid that if you're just sitting there fapping off to porn all day. And that's coming from a guy who used to shoot.
I find it so interesting that you've been in the industry, made money, had sex with a lot of women, porn, on camera, the whole thing. But it's almost like you're an advocate for men not watching porn. Basically. How do you handle those complete different outlooks?
And when did you come to that conclusion? Was it during your time there? Was it after? Like, when was your turning point? That's
a really, really good question.
Yeah, Matt wants to know.
I'm very glad you asked that, because I was in porn, and then people started DMing me. Guys would DM me here and there about advice, right? Like, I'm having a problem with this. Can you help me out? Blah, blah, blah. And that eventually pushed me in the direction I'm in now. And it just got to this point where I just saw so many guys had a problem. They needed help. And they had so many guys have a problem with porn now. And it wasn't even on my radar, honestly, when I was in the industry. But then when I started helping dudes out, I'm like, God damn, this is a real problem. And I started looking into the data, started looking into like the biological effects on guys' dopamine receptors, how it really screws them up. I'm like, well, I'm not going to lie. Like, if a guy comes to me, like, heart on his sleeve, hey, I'm struggling with this, I have a problem with this, I'm going to be honest with the guy and be like, bro, stop jerking it.
Yeah.
Step one.
Wow.
You know, because it helped. I genuinely feel for these guys. Because at some point in my like early 20s, I was probably that guy. Maybe not necessarily with a porn problem, but with like some other problem. I was the guy who was like, who would have loved to have found a dude to turn to and be like, bro, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me? So I feel for these kids.
Well, let me read some stats for you. And
You're a changed man, Sterling.
There he is. We're getting him there.
Like, camera shot. Running for president. 2024.
He's changed.
You can do it.
Sterling, look into the camera and say, stop jerking it.
Stop jerking it, dickhead.
Dickhead. You threw a dickhead in there. So here's some stats for you. Here's what I wanted to say. Basically, you know, I kind of did some research on what the most expensive addictions are. And porn is one of the cheapest addictions. Yeah, porn's free. Right, hello, you go on your phone, you go on your computer, you go on wherever you get your local entertainment, and it's free. It's no big deal, right? You don't have to pay for dinner. You don't got to go buy drinks. You got to awkward first kiss.
You're the product.
Yeah. You're the product.
Because, same with YouTube. Same with like because of all the paid ads that run.
Yes.
By you viewing it, that's how the website makes money.
You know what they say? You're the product. You're the product. Exactly. Porn is the cheapest addiction. Talking about dopamine, the definition of the dopamine is the brain's center for pleasure and satisfaction, and is released when the brain gets a reward. So it's a dopamine effect. Addiction effects: lost interest or distorted beliefs in sex, desensitization to sex, isolation, you're doing it alone usually, and depression. Here's some stats for you, by the way, speaking of porn being the cheapest addiction. An alcoholic spends $5,100 a year on average on alcohol. Cigarette smokers addicted to cigarettes, $12,000 a year. Cocaine as much as $15,000 a year. Wow. People like to party. Porn can essentially be free. By the way, here's some numbers for you. Men spend on average $65 a year. That's it, $65 a year on porn. On average, women, $129 a year. Really? I'm not sure what they're spending their money on with the porn. Maybe that's porn toys, maybe that's sex toys.
That would definitely
I know that.
Really?
So a couple more stats for you. 3 to 6% of U.S. adults are addicted to porn, and men spend 3 months of their lives collectively watching porn. That's 35 hours a year, and that's 40 minutes a week. You talked about getting these DMs or questions from men basically being like, Sterling, love your work. P.S. How can I stop? What are the biggest problems that you see, and what is step one to addressing this problem as a man?
With younger dudes, it's actually what you'd classify as delayed ejaculation. So it's an inability to climax with their partner, or even get hard in the first place. That is primarily the biggest problem you see with.
Well, those are
dudes.
two, I feel, totally different things.
They're very much related, right? If he's not
Okay.
in general, it's an excitement problem. Like they're not as excited by a real woman sitting in front of them as they were.
Like
to
they
their
just
laptop.
said, the addiction affects
control.
lost interest or distorted beliefs or desensitization. Interesting.
Yeah, and the easy
So
solution.
either you can't get it up or you last too long.
Yeah.
It's like A or Z.
You can't get it up or you can't get off at all.
Yeah.
Because you're not excited enough.
Wow.
Basically. Yeah. And all that. Step one is obviously stop jerking it to porn. Right?
Okay, and how does stop fapping
Okay.
help the men in the long run?
Well,
By the way, is fap a term for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool, fap would be-
We used to call it Jang-O, but okay. You know.
Different generations.
Different generations, these young kids. I found out recently that lying is capping and jerking off is fapping. All right, there we go.
The vocabulary is
Close
just
for
getting
comfort.
shorter.
Huh?
Said too close for comfort.
Yeah. The oldest millennial over here.
So the question was what's the benefit?
Yeah, why step one, stop fapping?
Right.
How does that help you in the long run?
Well, for a start, it's going to start to re-establish the correct sensitivity for your dopamine receptors. If you're jerking off all the time, your dopamine receptors are kind of set to a 10 out of 10 by default. So there's nothing that's kind of really going to be exciting and stimulating enough for you in the real world. Right? So, okay, we wean off of that. We can reset that back to its natural, normal level. And then magically, because it's all related to dopamine, magically you become more motivated to hit the gym. You actually become more motivated to start
Something else to
building
do.
your business.
Yeah.
All these things are positive knock-on effects from stopping that one habit.
Now, is it stopping that, or is it stopping watching porn and doing that?
I'd say they're related. I'd say that's actually a very good question. So with the porn side of things, it will be an overstimulation of the dopamine receptors, and you can screw up like you're
easier.
exposing yourself to blue light a bunch, particularly if you're fapping in the evening, right? So those are the problems there. Masturbation in general, there's two ways of looking at this, depending upon what problems you have in the bedroom. You can actually use masturbation strategically to kind of help you with certain problems in the bedroom. I won't go into too much detail about that. But if it's a thing that is a constant, like, habitual problem, it's better for you to be spending that romantic time with a woman than with your hand, obviously. Now, we talked about dopamine receptors and stuff. We talked about the positive spiral of quitting this can have. All of these things relate to like your body's reward circuitry, you know? So if you can, and cutting out that one habit is the reward circuitry and your dopamine receptors are also intimately linked to some other bad habits that you have, primarily social media addiction, primarily staring at your phone all day.
Yeah.
Like they have the same negative effect on dudes' and women's dopamine receptors, making their like attention spans drop to zero, reducing their motivation and their drive in general. So I will tell guys, okay, if you want to stop jerking off to porn, if you're finding that hard and difficult to stop that habit in particular, try with something that is a bit easier for you, like maybe cutting out sugary foods, something that gives you that instant hit.
Get a win.
Get a win, right?
Yeah.
Reduce your social media exposure, reduce your phone time. These things, because they're all the same problem. They all produce the same problem. So if you can start with whichever one of these things is a bit easier for you first, it'll help you achieve the next one and the next one and the next one.